They had got a blind man with a potato to drill out the holes, and instead of all of, when you're sitting the case on its side, instead of all the studs sitting like that, they were all like this. I think it was the end of 2016. I'd actually had my first Porsche. It was a Cayman S, and I loved it for a month or two. It was blowing clouds of smoke on startup. Every sort of 1,000 kilometres, it was chewing through a litre and a half of oil. And it only had 47,000 kilometres on the clock, so I was quite concerned and traded it very quickly. I think it was a victim of the bore scoring that's so common with those early 987s and 997s with those engines. So I'd always loved the air-cooled cars, and this quite cheap air-cooled car came up. It was complete, but it was an absolute basket case. It had a blown engine, it was black, it was rusty, it had this horrible big sort of 993 or 964 sort of tail wing on the back. What I liked was it was a whole car. It wasn't running, but it was a project that I could get my teeth stuck into. And I'm like, I've been wanting a big project for a while, and I thought, okay, this looks like a good car to start with. I quickly brought it back and started stripping it down. And at the time I was on car forums, and I'd seen a couple of sort of builds on a couple of people who sort of had YouTube videos to go with their builds. And I thought, okay, well, that's something I would watch. So I started filming the 911 build and documenting it from the very start. And I was amazed when, like, I looked and 50 people I don't know have watched my video, and I was like, "What? This is amazing! Yeah, this is great." And those first videos were handheld with an old GoPro, and it was shaky and horrible and not very watchable. It started picking up a bit of a following, and yeah, I stripped the car down. And I think what people really responded to was the fact that I would give it a go with these cars that would really becoming valuable cars, that I was willing to give it a go myself and try and repair it. And I was fixing rust and all the rest of it. And the Singer cars were relatively new at the time, and I looked at that and go, that's a beautiful car. That's my dream 911, but I don't have that kind of budget to go and get a Singer. And I thought, well, I can build my own version. So the car was a 1974, the first of the impact bumper cars. Probably the most unloved of the air-cooled era was the mid-year cars, 74, 5 and 6. Mostly because that's when the US introduced the big emissions crisis. So they ran them particularly hot to try and burn off the emissions, which then caused the head studs to pull out of the magnesium cases. And that was the super common issue with those mid-year cars, which they obviously fixed later on, but at the time that was a big problem. And this car, the engine had pulled head studs like them. The owner said he'd bought a second-hand, a rebuilt engine just off of Gumtree, and put it in. It ran about 100 metres and then pulled head studs again. When I started pulling the engine apart, we saw why. It was the worst engine rebuild you could imagine. So basically, 911 engine is cased in two halves, and then you have all the studs that come out either side, and then you have individual cylinders that go on, individual heads, and then a cam cover that goes over the top. So they look almost like motorbike air-cooled finned cylinders. Whoever rebuilt it, normally the way to fix these pulled head studs is you can put in time search, which is you drill the hole out bigger, you tap a much bigger hole, and it's like a threaded barrel that you can screw in, and then you can then screw in the head studs into that, and it gives a nice strong mounting into the case. The people who rebuilt this engine looked like they had drilled the head stud holes out. They had got a blind man with a potato to drill out the holes, and instead of when you're sitting the case on its side, instead of all the studs sitting like that, they were all like this. And they thought, no problems. I'll just oblong the holes through the cylinders and the heads all the way down, and then, some of them are wrong lengths. They just packed them out with random washers and all sorts of stuff. And surprisingly, amazingly, it didn't last, and it blew again. They told me it didn't run when I got it, so I stripped it apart. And actually, one of my viewers was Neil Harvey, who ran Performance Developments. He was an ex-Brabham Formula One mechanic, and then the engine builder at Andile. So he had a great history in these air-cooled 911s, and he invited me over to his shop in Costa Mesa in California. And because I wanted to do everything myself, he saw that, invited me into the shop, and under his tutelage, I did a lot of the machining on the car, on the engine, and got to really do as much of it myself as I could with an expert over my shoulder, because that is particularly the internal work, the head work, these things. That's, I like to learn things, but things have to be extremely precise and have very expensive machinery. So I was very privileged to be able to have that, and I rebuilt the engine. Under his tutelage, I assembled the bottom end there in Costa Mesa, and then took the rest back, and then assembled the rest of the engine in Australia. And being with him, he wanted to sort of show that you can save these horrible things. This particular case was not particularly valuable or rare, but he wanted to prove that some of this horrible stuff could still be repaired, and we have repaired it. And since I've done 20,000 odd very hard kilometers in it, and it's still going very strong. The car started, it was black, it was just a regular mid-year 911, and I put an RSR wide body on it. The rear is steel, the front is fiberglass. I converted it to a long hood, backdated the car. If I started again now, I don't know whether it actually would backdate it again, but that was the thing at the time, and I do love the way it came out. It has a ducktail and just all of the aspects that I really loved about that car. So I backdated it 1 year to a 1973 RSR inspired build. It's now got a 2.8 engine like those things, and I've rewired the whole car, rewired the engine. It's now a twin plug. I modified a BMW M5 V10 throttle body to run it as an e-throttle, so it now has it's an e-throttle. It has cruise control. It has electric air conditioning. I had to change the pedal box because it was a US car that had been converted to right-hand drive very badly, so I repaired everything and changed it to the way I like it. So it's got fixed racing buckets. It's got a cage with far too many cross braces in the back, because when I'm building the car, I'm like, yeah, that looks cool, and I'm building it. I can make it all these. And then when I got the car and actually started driving it, I realized I can't put anything into the back seat. I've got fixed racing buckets and a big cage. I could barely get my helmet between the seats, shoehorning it into the back through the cage. I've since sort of worked out ways. I've found a mount that sits underneath the passenger seat, so I can lift the whole seat up enough so that I can just get some bags in and actually road trip the car. Because, of course, under the bonnet, I've built like the RSR style cross bracing, so you can't really fit bags in the fruit, as I like to call it. Americans call it a frunk. I like to think it's not a boot. It's not a trunk. It's a boot, so it's a fruit. That is my forever car. That's Harry. I've never really named cars before YouTube, but it just seemed like you have to name all your cars. And because it was orange with a royal purple interior, it was named after Prince Harry. So that is Harry. And I later had a 996 that I called Archie as his son, as the younger version. So that's the name of Harry with the controversial purple tartan interior in the orange car.
When you get a ticket, it might look something like this, but the first thing that you need to do is take a picture of that ticket and send it to 305-305. That will get the ticket clinic on your case immediately. They've got brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California, but they can help you find a ticket no matter where you get it in the United States by helping you find a local attorney that will do everything they can to help you avoid costly fines, insurance premium increases, points on your license, risk of suspension, even jail time. They've helped me out with this ticket and many others, and a lot of my friends as well. So check them out now at the link in the description below, or again, text your ticket to 305-305 to get the ticket clinic on your case. They are the perfect partner in your fight against any speeding ticket.